Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to start our opening session now. My name is Michiko Iizuka. I'm a professor at GRIPS, National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. And I would like to first express our warm welcome to Japan and also to our institute. Today, I would like to first make an announcement of the foreign conference sponsors and media partner, Elsevier, Airbus, Exo Corporation, Hitachi, Mitsubishi Chemical Holdings, International Institute for Advanced Studies, Clarivate Analytics, Asia Research News, and Cactus Communications. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Professor Teruo Kishi, Science Technology Advisor of the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Japan, and also the Chair of the Local Organizing Committee for the conference, to give an opening remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, everyone. As was introduced, I'm Teruo Kishi, Science and Technology Advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Japan. On behalf of the Local Organization Committee, it's my great pleasure to welcome the INGSA's third biennial conference, INGSA2018, here in Tokyo. It is the first time this event has been held in Asia in collaboration with the government of Japan and Japan's National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, GRIPS. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all those who have worked hard for INGSA 2018. The year 2019 marks the 20th anniversary of the Budapest Declaration. The Declaration on Science and the Use of Scientific Knowledge, adopted by the World Conference on Science in Budapest, Hungary. Since then, almost 20 years have passed, and the role of science in overcoming social challenges is getting more and more important. Now, there is no argument that social science and natural sciences should be harmonized, since innovation cannot be created only by technology development. I expect the establishment of the International Science Council, ISC, by merging the International Council of Science, ICS, and International Social Council, ISSC, will strongly promote this harmonization. Using an overarching theme of science advice for changing the world, the INGSA 2018 focuses on challenges of evidence-based scientific advice for policy making, relations between innovative technology and society, and the creation of innovation for SDGs implementations. I firmly believe that there will be significant discussion on such important topics at this 2 days conference, and strong networks among diverse stakeholders, practitioners, academics, researchers, advisors, and policy makers will be further enhanced. Lastly, the importance is the establishment of this INGSA depends on Sir Peter, Dr. Gluckman, very much. So I would like to express my appreciation to Sir Peter. Last but not least, I would like to thank again to sponsors and organizers INGSA 2018. I wish for the INGSA 2018 full success. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Kishi, for your opening remarks. Following the opening remarks, we have two welcome remarks from two local host institutions. First, I am very pleased to introduce Professor Akihiko Tanaka, the President of National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies.
The Right Honorable Helen Clark, Sir Peter Gluckman, Dr. Teruo Kishi, Professor Michinari Hamaguchi, Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi, distinguished participants, and ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. On behalf of the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, GRIPS, I would like to welcome all of you to the GRIPS. It is a great privilege and honor to be a conference partner of the INGSA 2018 conference. The GRIPS is a national university established in 1997 that has only graduate programs. It aims to contribute to the development and advancement of democratic governance both in Japan and abroad through research and education in governmental policy and policy reform. The GRIPS has many master's and doctor's programs on public policy. Our students are mostly recruited from mid-career professionals, mostly in the public sector of many countries in the world, including Japan. Currently, about 70% of our students are international students from about 50 countries. Many alumni are already assuming important positions in their respective countries. For example, governors of the central banks in the Philippines and Vietnam are distinguished alumni. One of the critical areas of policy studies is science, technology, and innovation policy. So, our science, technology, and innovation program is specially targeted to enhance capability of government to design, implement, and evaluate policies related to science, technology, and innovation based on scientific approach. In 2014, the GRIPS established the CIREX Center based on the next project called Science for Redesigning Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy, which started in 2011. The aim of CIREX Center is actually to bridge policy and science. So it is our extreme privilege to be a part of the organizing committee of the INGSA 2018 conference, as the themes of the conference is exactly what the GRIPS is intended to promote. We are also pleased that this conference features the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, because the SDGs provide comprehensive scope of virtually all public policy areas. Since I assumed the current position at GRIPS last year, I have encouraged all faculty members to be conscious about their research and education in terms of the SDGs. This conference must be a great opportunity for all of us, including our students, to realize how science and technology are critical to achieve many of the SDGs. Finally, I would like to repeat my thanks to Sir Peter and other leaders of the INGSA for choosing GRIPS as the site of this year's conference. I would also like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all participants to come to our campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Tanaka. Now I would like to invite Mr. Michinari Hamaguchi, the President of Japan Science and Technology Agency, for his welcome remarks.
Sir Peter Gluckman, Honorable Helen Clark, Dr. Teruo Kishi, Dr. Kazuhiko Takeuchi, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Michinari Hamaguchi, President of Japan Science and Technology Agency, JST so-called. First of all, I would like to offer my sincere congratulations to the third INGSA conference. I would also like to thank you all for your participation despite of your busy schedule. In the 21st century, science, technology, and innovation have increased their importance, and their interaction with society and the policy is expanding rapidly. As STI is a key for socio-economical development, all the countries of the world are strongly promoting STI policies and activities. In addition, science and technology are expected to play an important role to solve various problems, particularly in the Sustainable Development Goals. STI is expected to help achieve the goals. On the other hand, as the influence of STI grows, we are required to consider more about ELSI, ethical, legal, and social issues of STI. Before we introduce new technology to society, it is important to communicate with various stakeholders in society to build a consensus and trust, and to prepare a social system to accept the new technologies. At that time, we have to discuss in various scales, from local level to global level, beyond the boundaries. JST is promoting R&D to produce technological seeds that contribute to people, society, and industry. In addition, JST has promoted STI for SDGs, both domestically and internationally. We are facilitating international collaboration research projects, so-called SATREPs, with developing countries to address global issues, implementing capacity development, and achieve the sustainable society. JST is also carrying out investigation analysis and making proposals on STI policy, including science advice. JST trains and develops young researchers through our funding programs and encourage them to interact with foreign peers. Japan Asia Youth Exchange Program in Science, called Sakura Science Program, is highly appreciated by many Asian countries. Today, many young government officials from ASEAN members countries participated in this conference with the support of the program. I'm really pleased and honored to co-organize INGSA2018 in Tokyo. I expect the constructive discussion in this conference will make great contribution to address various problems the world is facing. I wish you all a most successful conference. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, President Hamaguchi, for your welcome remarks. Continue on to our next speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi, Vice President, Science Council of Japan, which is one of the supporters of this conference, for his greetings.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Kazuhiko Takeuchi, the Vice President of the Science Council of Japan, which is located very close to this GRIPS. I hope some of you could have a chance to visit our Science Council of Japan. On behalf of Science Council of Japan, I would like to say a few words at the opening of the third International Network for Government Science Advice Conference, or shortly INGSA2018, here in Tokyo. First, I would like to congratulate INGSA and Sir Peter Gluckman, Chair of the INGSA, on holding the third meeting today, especially here in Japan. Science Council of Japan welcomes all of the participants here in GRIPS in Tokyo. Let me introduce Science Council of Japan and the emerging mission briefly. Science Council of Japan is a representative organization of Japanese scientist community ranging over the fields of sciences, including humanities, social sciences, life sciences, natural sciences, and engineering. Science Council of Japan is a special organization operating independently of the government. Now, Science Council of Japan belongs to an undertaking of Cabinet Office, which is a nucleus of central administration. This means that Science Council of Japan acts for the purpose of promoting and enhancing the field of science and having sciences reflected in administration, industries, and people's lives. When we look at the situation around us, now the world comes to encounter numerous complex problems which are hard to solve, such as degrading environment of the earth. In these rapid, drastic changes, general public seems to have lost their visions in the future. In this era, scientists may need to reconsider what is the happiness of the people, essentially. I learned that the main mission of INGSA is to provide a forum for policy makers, practitioners, national academics, and academicians to share experience and to develop theoretical and practical approaches to the use of scientific evidence in informing policy at all levels of the government. The overarching theme of this conference, Science Advice for a Changing World, is kept on the same line of what Science Council of Japan is aiming and making effort for today. In the international science arena, the International Science Council was established in July 2018 by the integration of the International Council for Science and the International Social Science Council, which aims to span social science, natural science, and engineering, as already explained by Professor Kishi. We welcome the president of ISC, Professor Daya Reddy. Where he is? Daya is there. And President-elect, Sir Peter Gluckman. This is evidence that international science communities are aware that the integrating of the knowledge and the wisdom of all fields of science is inevitable to cope with the emerging issues around the world. One of the international ventures is Future Earth, an international cooperation platform aiming to realize a sustainable global society. Furthermore, by 2030, it is necessary for the international community to contribute to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Science Council of Japan is willing to work for these issues in cooperation with the international community. Finally, I would like to appreciate Sir Peter Gluckman, Professor Teruo Kishi, chair of the local organizing committee, and all the people concerned to make INGSA 2018 here in GRIPS possible. Through today's conference, I hope fruitful discussion will be happen on emerging issues. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi, for your greetings. Now I'm pleased to welcome Sir Peter Gluckman, Chair of the International Network for Government Science Advice, INGSA, who is also a former Chief Science Advisor to the Prime Minister of New Zealand and International Science Council's President-elect, to give a presidential remark.
Thank you very much. I too would like to welcome you and thank our Japanese colleagues for all they've done to make this meeting a success. I particularly want to acknowledge the gracious remarks of Professor Kishi, who I've enjoyed working with for many years, and thank Professor Tanaka, President Hamaguchi, Professor Takeuchi for their comments. And I particularly want to acknowledge Professor Aramoto and Satoru Otaki for all, and their team at CIREX for all they've done to get us to this point. It's somewhat hard to believe that INGSA is only 4 years old. In that time, we've delivered over 20 workshops involving perhaps 1,500 attendees with partners in Africa, Europe, Caribbean, Central America, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. We've got over 5,000 academics, policy professionals, decision makers, and diplomats from over 80 countries involved in INGSA's activities. We've got a formal partnership with UNESCO. We're now heavily engaged with the United Nations Development Programme, about more tomorrow, and others on Sustainable Development Goals activities. We've produced a very influential report at the request of OECD on the policy implications of the digital transformation on human well-being, and we've launched effective chapters in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and soon North America and Europe. And yesterday, a division for science, for international relations and diplomacy was launched, including also incorporating FIMSTAN, the Network of Foreign Ministry Science and Technology Advice interests, which had a meeting yesterday involving over 30 countries. This is the third biennial meeting of INGSA, the previous ones being held in Auckland, New Zealand, and in Brussels. And this time we've purposely made the meeting slightly smaller to encourage easier networking. And I'm truly delighted with the mix of attendees, both senior and emerging, well balanced between the global south and north. The sessions at this meeting cover the broad range of contemporary issues at the science policy interface. Satellite meetings to the main meeting include workshops on parliamentary science advice, on science diplomacy, urban science advice, capacity building with the Global Young Academy, which was held yesterday, and a meeting with Sense About Science about the role of data and policy making, which was also held yesterday. But while this biennial meeting is important, it's our intersessional activities that are much more important. Workshops, training, a report generation, research led by James Wilsden, and the many partnerships that have been developed. As was mentioned, INGSA is now constitutionally part of the International Science Council, and tomorrow we'll hear from Daya Reddy, who will address the place of INGSA within ISC's strategic plan, which the new governing board has been working on. So if we look at the landscape of the interface between science and policy, there's good news, there's sad news, and there's bad news. The good news is reflected in the many countries and organisations that have partnered with INGSA or have already developed the individual and institutional capacities at the interface. The sad news is while some countries have done it, there's many countries yet to do so, and few countries really have a holistic and multivalent science advisory ecosystem, and show deficits within their policy communities and science communities that complicate and muddy the interface. The bad news is also about the rise in populism and the associated explosion of fake news, false facts, manipulated information, loss of trust in institutions and experts, and the shortening of the policy cycle that makes the role of robust evidence even more important and more difficult. One could argue that a strong science advisory ecosystem will be a critical defence against this trend towards a world based on opinion rather than knowledge. This is indeed a complex interface, one that requires distinct skills and knowledge to navigate. It's not simply about academics holding a mirror up to the policy community, or about policymakers seeking endorsement of positions already determined. It's a complex and sensitive interface requiring understandings of both cultures, one that is critical because there's not a single issue affecting social, environmental, or economic well-being where science does not play an important role in informing policy development, application, and evaluation. Yet science does not and cannot make policy. It informs it. We must strive for policymakers to realise that robust evidence can assist them to make better choices between options, because policy making at its heart is really about choosing between options that affect different groups of stakeholders in different ways. Thus, policy making and political decision making will always ultimately be a matter of choices driven by many values-based dimensions. But underneath it all, evidence, robust evidence, will inform which options they might consider. And the issues are evolving. Policy cycles are getting shorter. The issues that politicians are expected to address are increasingly complex. The so-called wicked problems that we all hear about. But too often politicians want evidence to support prior decisions, and often the full range of knowledge disciplines is not brought to bear on the problem. Data remains poorly used, and yet the digital space, as we'll discuss at this meeting, has much to offer. Then there's the challenge of too much information, often conflicting and competing. Brokerage is clearly needed in such a context. To quote from a recent report from Sitra, the Finnish parliamentary endowed but independent think tank, the development of the interaction between knowledge and decision-making is a central strategic competence and governance challenge for the future. Meeting the challenge requires a leap forward in terms of dialogue, a fundamental change in operational knowledge, at the heart of which is an understanding that knowledge can only be given meaning through interaction. So what does science and what does science advice do? Science provides the grounding for understanding the system, the options, and the implications of each. But scientists too must understand how to assist the policy community. Bringing forward problems without bringing forward policy and politically acceptable solutions is generally not very helpful. The issues for which policymakers most often need assistance are the very ones for which science is often incomplete and ambiguous. And increasingly the issues that we confront are ones where knowledge is in interacting with societal values, and those values are often in dispute. Diplomatic skills, in a sense, are needed to navigate this interface, and importantly to match supply and demand of policy-relevant knowledge. Often the challenge is to get the policymaker to understand the value and the need for evidence, and for the scientists to understand what the question is that the policymakers want answered. These, of course, are matters for the next 2 days. A major theme of this meeting is transformation. societal transformation, and in particular, the types of transformation needed to realise the Sustainable Development Goals. INGSA, working with what was ICSU and now the International Science Council, has been very active in thinking through some of the issues, and in particular how to shift governments from a somewhat cynical repackaging of what they're already doing as being their commitment to the SDGs to a situation where the SDGs really do exert some real policy pull on governments. And tomorrow we'll expand on what INGSA is doing and its partnerships in this regard. But there's been one concerning step backwards. While the previous United Nations Secretary General established a scientific advisory board, its mandate was not renewed under the current Secretary General's tenure. Given that every global challenge has a scientific dimension, the lack of any structure to integrate and provide knowledge into the global policy community remains a real concern. And it's something that we at INGSA and hopefully at the International Science Council will continue to raise awareness about. There are many other topics on the agenda, ranging from science diplomacy to the positioning of evidence derived from the private sector, to issues of how big data will impact on the policy process. We've got a great group of speakers, panellists and delegates, including the first round of our research associates, who have been supported by the IDRC from Canada, awarded earlier this year, and we have executive members of every regional chapter here. Please use the chance to network, to explore the very important and complex issues, and to support INGSA's further development. Tomorrow, I will describe some of the important developments and activities INGSA is engaged in and will be over the next 2 years, and we look forward to your active engagement. Once again, I thank our Japanese hosts and look forward to some vibrant and insightful discussions. Thank you.